Um, well, so tell me, what do you know about crypto right now? Like when somebody says crypto or cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or something, like, what do you think about?
Some sort of electronic currency that you can spend on stuff over the internet and not actual physical value.
Okay. So it's not a physical thing. It's not a real thing. And you say you could spend it for things on the internet, but nobody really would spend it for things on the internet right now because it's too volatile. It fluctuates in price too much because you got some of these old stories where at max price of Bitcoin, I think somebody in the early days bought a pizza for 100 Bitcoin. Well, that's $2 million. Yeah, that's a $2 million pizza. That's expensive.
Wasn't a good pizza.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably not. I mean, at the time, it was. I think that was probably $5 or something. In terms of what Bitcoin was worth. But I'm just saying that you run that risk with any crypto today.
It's also a $500 pizza.
Huh?
If you bought it for 100 Bitcoin, it's still a $500 pizza.
Well, no, I mean I'm just throwing. It was worth that. I think the price of the pizza was over $1 million, equivalent to over $1 million at the top price of Bitcoin, which was 20 grand per coin. Something like that. But at the time, Bitcoin was a penny or something. It was worth nothing. Okay, so now, we have this concept of cryptocurrency, but underneath any of these things, we have something called blockchain. Have you heard that phrase before? Blockchain?
I heard you mention it yesterday.
Okay. So at the end of the day, the thing we're really talking about here is from a computer science perspective, certainly, but also from a technology world-changing perspective, is blockchain. This is the guy that's going to revolutionize our technology. It just so happens that one of the applications of blockchain that's become popular is cryptocurrency, where people want to stick it to the man. I'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so what does blockchain do? So blockchain in general, so this is a concept, and then there's different ways of implementing the blockchain. Just like if you want to think about cars or something like that, you can say that several different companies make a six-cylinder engine, but each one maybe has a little different take on it, where they get a little more, a little less horsepower, that kind of stuff. So, but ultimately, it's a 6 horsepower engine that will turn a axle and make a car go, or make something else go. But so it does the same thing, but the means to an end might be slightly different. So in any case, this is and this is generally speaking, but let's just say, so this is a public ledger of transactions between parties. So in the cryptocurrency world, we think of transactions as moving money. Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever the coin is. But blockchain in general says we have something that we want to send from this person to this person. It could be a digital asset. It could be the car rental industry, where we're going to marry this rental car to this person and track it. All right. So what you're doing is you're saying, okay, we're going to send this thing to this person, and we're going to validate that it definitely arrived here in the middle. All right. So with any of if we just kind of want to imagine going into this, any of these cryptocurrencies, think of it in the real world as if, let's say you're buying something from Amazon and you had an envelope, you stuffed a bunch of cash in the envelope, mailed it with the post office. All right. So at that point, you're trusting the post office, right? Blockchain and the various implementations of blockchain, Bitcoin being one of them, Ethereum being one of them, and then there's a zillion implementations of blockchain. They're replacing the post office. And the purpose is to guarantee that your envelope of cash or the thing you're sending arrives at the other point. Okay? So it's just a public ledger of transactions that is duplicated a bunch of times. And I'll put this, I'll share this presentation so you guys will be able to look at it later. Okay, so that's what this guy is, because what we have, and we're going to draw a picture of this. And we have several people. We'll put a little smiley face on here. So that's a people. So we'll just have 4 of them right here. All right. Now, each of these people will have a copy of that blockchain. And in reality, you have more than 4 people that are playing in this sandbox. But, this is day 1 of a currency. So they'll each have, or day 1 of any blockchain. So each of these guys have a copy of this ledger. Okay? So it's just like if you have a checkbook and you have all these things like, okay, I sent check from, check number 7 I sent to this person. You have the person's name there. Except instead of a name, you're going to have this crazy looking address. So think social security number and then make it 50 times more complex. All right, something like that, a unique number. All right, so this blockchain is this ledger of all transactions that have ever occurred on that blockchain. Ever occurred. Okay? Now, so if we were to look inside that blockchain, what does that guy actually look like? The blockchain is going to be a chain of blocks, as the name suggests. All right, and maybe this guy is block 0, this guy is block 1, this guy is block 2, so on and so forth. All right, and each of these blocks occurs depending on which algorithm, which company, let's say, is making that particular blockchain. Each of these blocks is born in a different period of time. Like with Bitcoin, a block is born every roughly 10 minutes. All right, so what's in a block? A block is all transactions that have occurred over a period of time. So for Bitcoin, it's 10 minutes. For some of the other currencies, it might be a lot smaller than that. But so that's the difference between these currencies, some of these variables, things like that. But generally speaking, a block is all of the things that have transactions that occurred during that period of time. So if you want to think about this in terms of real life, and again, connecting it back to currency, which is one of the applications of blockchain, when you go to Walmart or something like that, you swipe your credit card. It takes 3 or 4 seconds, and then Visa approves the purchase, right? And then you can walk out of the store. So you have one guy approving that purchase, saying, yes, this is good. You have the funds, or you have the available credit, whatever it is, and Visa takes care of the rest, and Visa collects a fee, right? So Walmart gets 97% of the purchase, Visa gets 3% of the purchase, and everybody's happy. Okay, but the company there, Walmart, is trusting one source to validate that transaction. They're trusting that Visa will send them cash in exchange for you swiping this magical piece of plastic. And you walk out with your whatever, probably, I'm guessing, My Little Pony, something or other. You do the dolls.
The dolls with the little horses.
Well, yeah, but isn't that a doll? Isn't it? Is a doll imply human, or can it be?
I don't know.
Could be anything, really, right?
I guess so. I don't know. But in these blockchains, it's not transactions like for Walmart and Visa.
No, but keep in mind that when you go to you're a person, and you're sending money to Walmart by means of Visa. Mm-hmm. So in real life, the blockchain is maintained by Visa. So Visa has this ledger of all transactions that occur between Visa's customers that they've assigned unique numbers to, right? And Visa gives the okay for all that. So Visa says, okay, you're trying to send money to this guy, to Walmart's account with Visa, no problem. We'll validate that for you. Walmart's decided to trust Visa. You've decided to trust Visa. Walmart hands you the whatever you're buying, and everybody's happy. Okay, but in that situation, Visa is the one who's being trusted. and Visa's the one who's getting the money. Okay? So as individuals, we don't get to be Visa. We don't get that 3%. How many of you would want to have 3% of all the purchases that happen at Walmart? Pretty solid, right? Now, more than likely, Walmart negotiated their rate down, so it's probably less than 1%, but maybe it's 0.7%. You'd still take 0.7% of all Walmart sales. But Visa has to share that with MasterCard and Amex and stuff like that. But regardless, you get the point. But there's only one guy. That's the credit card company. All right. So now with Visa, if you're thinking about this from a block perspective, each time a human swipes a card, that's a block with Visa. So it's a one-off transaction, right? One-off transaction. Now, it's possible, especially if you go back in the older days of credit cards, you maybe you've been at a fair or something like that when they did this, where you had the credit card, they had the carbon paper, and they slid the thing across to take an imprint of the credit card. Yeah, so what they do is they collect those for the day. And then at the end of the day, they would either, back in the day, they would call them in. They would call up Visa and, read off each of these things. And the receipt that they would have is the imprint of the credit card. They'd read off the numbers and stuff like that, and Visa would then approve each purchase. So those places that would take the carbon copy thing were trusting that you had enough available credit on your card. They weren't validating at all until the end of that day. So they were collecting all the transactions that occurred during that day, or maybe they do it every 3 hours, whatever it was. However the company did it, that was then a block, right? But now it's a real-time thing. And maybe behind the scenes, maybe Visa actually processes them. I don't know what their exact method of doing things. Maybe Visa does a quick authorization and just says, yeah, this is legit. But maybe what they really do is they're kind of collecting those transactions, and then they actually process them where it ends up on your bill. Because sometimes if you looked at your bill right away, you might not see it on there. You might get some sort of push notification from your Chase Bank or something like that saying that they just authorized some purchase for a certain amount if you have the app or something like that. But behind the scenes, you don't know whether they're actually approving it and putting it on your statement and sending the money to Visa on a per transaction basis. Probably not, right? So they're collecting all the transactions over some period of time and then awarding dollars to those end companies based on those final transactions. So that's a block, all right? A block is a collection of transactions over some period of time, whatever that period of time is, okay? Now, the difference is in real life, we rely on the speed of this, right? When you swipe that card at Walmart and Visa says, yeah, this guy's good for it. That's what really they're saying. You got one guy, Visa, saying he's good for the money, right? So we've established a level of trust with Visa. Walmart trusts Visa, blah, blah, blah. So trust is a very important thing when we talk about anything in the cryptocurrency world or, well, blockchain. Blockchain is innately trustworthy. But now if we're thinking about things that could be money, trust is a little bit harder to come by, right? So for instance, we talked about sending an envelope of cash through the post office. And even if we trust the post office, we'll definitely get it there. Let's remove that variable. So the post office isn't going to lose your envelope of cash, let's say. Would you send cash to, this might not be your preferred way of doing it because it's not as convenient, but would you, from a trust perspective, would you have a problem sending cash to Amazon and then Amazon will send you the package? We trust Amazon, right? Generally speaking, Amazon, well, we trust them that if we send them $100 in cash, they'll send us the product that we were exchanging because they've built up a level of trust. Okay, but would you send $100 to some random stranger from eBay who's willing to send you your My Little Pony stuff? Okay, probably not, right? We don't know that guy from Adam. So there isn't a level of trust there. We haven't established that trust between that guy. So what blockchain does is it guarantees the transmission of a token to a destination. Now, when you leave the blockchain, so for instance, if I send, so we're just talking about this at the high level. If I send some Bitcoin to, Joe Nobody, I don't even know his name with his just crazy address. So I send a Bitcoin to him, and I expect him to send me a physical product. I'm completely trusting him. I'm trusting the blockchain network to get my Bitcoin to him. That's the least of my worries. What I really want is for the product to come back, right? Because the blockchain isn't governing that product. Make sense? Now, what you could have from a tracking perspective, you could have all these products and maybe the full inventory of something like Amazon, maybe they put that onto a blockchain. So they can detect who currently has ownership of product. All right, so maybe I send 1 Bitcoin to this guy, just to keep the number simple. That's an expensive product, but I send 1 Bitcoin to this guy, and then on a separate blockchain, the item that is, let's say it's a PlayStation. So it's Sony's blockchain. So Sony keeps track of all of the PlayStations that exist. And this PlayStation is currently owned by this guy. He has to then transfer that PlayStation to me over that blockchain. Now, the PlayStation doesn't materialize and go over the internet, whatever, but what ends up happening is when he sends it to me, I then mark that transaction as being complete, and now it's a public ledger of who owns that PlayStation. There may be guys in the middle, once that transaction occurs, validate that, okay, the PlayStation has arrived. Maybe this person has to take a picture of it. There's going to be companies that get born out of this for doing that kind of escrow service, the transmission between that. So maybe the PlayStation arrives, I take a picture of the serial number or something like that, and I upload it to something. I mean, eventually I'll probably have an app with a scanner or something. But, I put this publicly, and all these, the miners in the middle all look at it and say, yeah, that's the PlayStation from over here. This guy says he has it. 100 people in the middle all agree that's the deal. They give a thumbs up on it. That block gets added to the blockchain. So whatever block that transaction was part of during that 10-minute period or something like that gets then added to the blockchain. So now officially, you physically have the PlayStation, but now officially that PlayStation is publicly marked as not being here anymore. Now it's here. And that doesn't necessarily have your name associated with it as anonymous, but it's your address. And somewhere in here you've kind of validated it. So you'd have to kind of track 2 different things. You're tracking coin moving from here to here, and then you're tracking product moving from here to here. Does that make sense? So eventually products can be tagged with, a little QR code, call that a token. So it's almost like a real life representation of a coin. So maybe, you can have a Bitcoin QR thing where when it arrives, you scan it and that completes the transaction or something like that, pending some validation. But in any case, we don't have that yet. So that's kind of a future infrastructure is going to be built on top of blockchain. So at the end of the day, the generic form of blockchain is just you have assets, you have tokens. They're usually referred to as tokens. And a token can move from one account to another account with validation, with public validation in the middle. You're not trusting any individual. Okay, there's a whole big giant group of people depending on which tokens you're using and how popular. The size of the people that are validating it comes down to how popular your tokens are. So lots and lots and lots of people are involved in the validation of Bitcoin or Ethereum or things like that, where far fewer are involved in the validation of, Bob's coin that he created last night. Because there's a zillion cryptocurrencies, and you can go and create your own, for no good reason, but could. All right, so that's the high level thing of this. So we have this collection of blocks that exist in a chain. A block gets added to a chain once it's been. So all these guys are working on a block. Well, they also have access to the blockchain. So let's leave the chain out here. All right. So at the same time, they're each working on a block. Let's squeeze this down, make it a little smaller. Okay, so they each have a copy of what they believe is the current block. All right, so in the ideal world, these blocks are all identical. Now, it's not necessarily 100% true. If somebody tries to screw with the system, you might get one of these that has a bad block. Okay, and you'll see how that gets helped later on. I'm going to steal this guy. So you can kind of imagine that this is a public blockchain. and these guys all have a copy of it. The reality is that there are as many copies of blockchains as there are people with wallets for that particular coin, right? So the idea is if you were going to completely destroy a currency, you would have to, you'd have to have nuclear bombs going off everywhere, and everybody's blockchain would have to be destroyed. So it's in duplicate zillions of times. Okay, so that's why we're saying it's protected. You're not relying on, one bank having a bunch of money, or a subset of banks having a bunch of money. But each bank has their own ledger of their customers. You have a single global bank that everybody who's involved in that currency is keeping an eye on, has oversight over. Okay, so these are the miners, these are the people. So this is what you guys want to get into, right? This mining thing. So you're using your computer equipment. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Let me fix this before it starts. Whoop. Are you killing me? Blockchain. There we go. All right, so these guys are doing something with the block that was given to them, trying to validate that block. All right, so if you want to keep it simple, they're trying to, let's say this block has it's a guess a number between 1 and a zillion. All right, so they've got to guess that number, whatever the number is, some big range of numbers. So these guys are trying to guess that number. It's more complicated than that, but let's just use that as our example. Okay, so all these guys, they can guess some number of numbers per second. Okay, that's their mining speed. All right, so they're guessing, they're saying, is the number 5? No. Is the number 11? No. So, whatever they're using to guess, however they're deciding how to do their guesses. If they're going linearly, is it 0, is it 1, is it 2, is it 3, or are they just randomly generating a number, whatever it is. Finally, one of these guys gets the right number. Now, the thing is that all of these blocks, because they're supposed to be identical to each other, are all thinking about the same number. So maybe the number is 75. So the first one of these guys that guesses 75, it is what called solves this block. So this block says, you got it. Okay, so then he says, hey, I got the answer. So he notifies the rest of the network saying, the answer is 75. This guy says, I think I lost, but let's check. He says, was it 75? Yep. He says, was it 75? Yep. He says, was it 75? Yep. And let's say that's everybody, or the number of people that validate it, that the more people that validate it, the more likely it was correct, right? Depending on which algorithm, usually after 3 or 6 validations, a block is considered confirmed. But then over time, it becomes even more than that, because the number of validations, the more validations you require, the longer it'll take a transaction to be approved. So a lot of times, if you're dealing with a store that might take Bitcoin or something like that, maybe they're okay if let's say you're buying a pack of gum. This is like a low risk item. They get 1 validation. It's probably fine. We can roll with that. If you're buying something bigger, maybe it's you're buying a TV. Not end of the world money, but more expensive. Maybe they want 3 validations. Buying a car, maybe it's 6 validations. You're buying a building, maybe they want 20 validations or something like that. Which might take an hour or take 2 hours, but you're buying a building. Okay, so it's that's maybe worth it. Where you're buying a pack of gum, you're not waiting 2 hours for a pack of gum. All right. So depending on how secure you want that thing to be, you might wait for more validations, because what's going to happen is let's assume in the simple case, all of these guys, these are all the miners for this particular currency or this particular blockchain that happens to be a currency in our case here. And they all agree, yep, it was 75. So at that point in time, this block gets added to this blockchain. And that's the public blockchain. Make sense? Now, what can end up happening is, let's say that these 3 guys agree that it was 75. But this guy doesn't. He finds out that the number was 21 as he keeps crunching along with it. All right? So he thinks it's 21. These guys all think it's 75. So then what ends up happening is you have 2 blockchains that become born. One of them gets this block added to it. The other one gets this block added to it. Now, the security of any of these blockchains is based on, so when you're guessing that 75 was not just what this guy was thinking. It was also done in terms of the previous block. Okay, so it's some crazy algorithm that comes up with a number that is not just related to this block, but also related to the previously approved block. So we have two blockchains right now because the last block that was added, we couldn't agree upon. But now the next block comes in, there's a very small chance that the same people are going to disagree on it. Okay, so what should happen the next time is you're either going to get a third blockchain, potentially, if you have more disagreement, or you're going to get maybe you keep with these two blockchains, but let's say that this blockchain gets the next block added to it. So this guy is one block longer than this guy. At any point in time, the longest blockchain is considered the valid blockchain. That's the real blockchain. So the blockchain that has the most legitimate blocks on it is considered the accurate one. Because you could have a possible single false positive. Because one block kind of slips through the cracks and for some reason gets corrupted from one of the places. It could also be somebody's trying to, cheat. Somebody's trying to mess with the network or something like that. But they won't be able to take over this blockchain unless they can maintain their fake blockchain always being the longest blockchain. Whichever blockchain is the longest within that network is the official blockchain. Does that make sense? Okay, so unless you can win more than 50% of the time, okay, if you can keep up your lie and maintain that your blockchain is always longer, once you cheat it once, if you can keep it longer than all the other blockchains, then you're maintaining the official one, even if it's a lie one. Make sense? All right. Now, each new block makes that mathematically less probable. One time, and this is one thing you'll see or maybe read about as you get into this with Bitcoin mining or any of the crypto mining, is because none of you will be doing Bitcoin mining. We'll talk about that. But with any crypto mining, you'll see there's this thing called a 51% problem. They don't want any individual pool. So I've kind of drawn these as being individual people, but actually what this is a pool of people. So you and your 11,000 friends who are all mining together to try to win this block because there's a whole lot of mining power on these networks. All right. So what you want to have is you don't want any one of these individual pools to have anywhere close to 50% of the total mining power on the network. Because if they do, there's a higher probability that they will be able to mine multiple blocks in a row. Now, luck might mean that a particular pool might win 2 or 3 blocks in a row just because they got lucky. They had a lot of people on there and they lucked out. One time there was a pool that won 6 in a row. They got over 51% and they won 6 in a row, and that now starts becoming dangerous. Because if they're winning 6 in a row, that means they have a 6-block lead on the official chain. So most pools will actually cap their numbers. They'll say, okay, well, once we reach maybe 20% of the total mining power, we're not going to let anybody else mine on our pool. Even though they'll win less often, when they do win, the amount of money the people who are mining get will be the same over time. Because fine, they win half as often, but they'll win twice as much when they win because they're splitting it between less people. Does that make sense? So they're not really hurting themselves in the long run by limiting it, as long as they have a good size team. But having a giant team is actually detrimental to the network, which would then also be detrimental to them because your network gets hacked and then effectively that coin becomes not trustworthy and the value of it goes down to nothing. So it's not in their best interest to have full control over the network. They want to be a piece of the pie, win often enough to make their balance keep going up, and the rest of the time they'll lose. But on average, they'll win enough to make a certain kind of a consistent amount per day. Okay? So in any case, whichever is the longest blockchain ends up becoming the official one. So eventually this guy falls off and we're back to our kind of official blockchain for the network. And these guys, they get the next block in Bitcoin, it's the next 10 minutes, they get a new block, they start guessing numbers again, whoever wins, broadcast it and say, hey, this is the answer, does everybody agree with this? As they start agreeing with it, the block finally gets added to the blockchain, so on and so forth. Make sense? All right, so that's the act of mining. So now, these guys are using computer equipment and it's costing them an electrical bill, unless you live on campus, which is costing Concordia an electric bill, which you're indirectly paying for through your tuition. So it's still costing you an electric bill. All right. But in any case, what's in it for these guys? So let's talk about Bitcoin as an example. If we use Bitcoin as the example, blocks happen around every 10 minutes. Okay, every 10 minutes. Now, the actual time that a block takes to be found, for the number to be guessed, maybe hardly ever is 10 minutes. Maybe it's 8 minutes sometimes, maybe it's 12 minutes sometimes. So the average should be around 10 minutes. Now, depending, and that changes based on the current speed of all the mining on the network. So as more and more people get on the network, bringing more and more guessing power onto the network, the amount of time per block is going to go down. So, but Bitcoin's algorithm says it should be around 10 minutes. So the next time they update the network, they're going to say, okay, well, we're going to, instead of you guessing a number between 1 and 100, now you're guessing a number between 1 and 1,000, or 1 in 10,000, or 1 in 100,000. So they're upping what's called the difficulty of the network to try to drive the average block time back to around 10 minutes. So right now, Bitcoin's network difficulty is astronomical. And you need ridiculous, this guy wouldn't cut it. Okay, nobody is mining Bitcoin today with a graphics card. They're using very specialized equipment for Bitcoin mining. Yeah, ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits. So for Bitcoin, they're all using these things called ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits. And what this has actually done is it's made Bitcoin significantly less decentralized, because now you have a relatively small number of mining pools that are actually players at all in Bitcoin, and then a relatively small number of people within each of those pools that are providing most of the mining power. These are places that have giant warehouses in the middle of some foreign country with a whole bunch of ASICs running up huge power bills, but they're earning enough Bitcoin per month to cover their power bill.
I was looking at a bill yesterday. Some guy, and he had like a bill out in Washington. He had a $80,000 bill a month.
Yeah, and that guy's probably small potatoes.
Yeah.
That's a nothing setup for Bitcoin. So the point is that you're not mining Bitcoin. Okay, I've been in crypto for years when it wasn't cool. So I was mining Bitcoin with CPUs, and I was mining Bitcoins with GPUs when everybody else was mining them with those. And then I had ASIC miners. I was once scammed out of 15 Bitcoins buying a new ASIC miner where I sent them the Bitcoins. They never sent me the miner. And then there's nobody to complain to. So I lost 15 Bitcoins. That was worth about $7,000 or so at the time. It was worth a little more than that now. But, that's the cost of being an early adopter. This isn't any different than you go into, the gold rush and you're running out to California to make your millions in gold, and you get a big chunk of gold and you're on your way back, and, some guy and his donkey mug you and take your gold. Okay. So, that's the world, right? That's where we're kind of the wild west of currency here with these cryptocurrencies. So we're going to say that one of the problems with Bitcoin is ASICs and their cost and constant speed increases. So ASICs are really expensive anyways, but if you bought an ASIC today, let's say you go out and you buy a $5,000 ASIC that, let's say, makes you, a big enough player in Bitcoin where maybe you can end up recuperating the cost of your miner in, let's call it 3 months, 4 months, something like that, based on today's difficulty and today's value of Bitcoin. But at the end of that 3 or 4 months, your ASIC isn't as effective as it was 3 months ago. Because the difficulty of the network has probably gone up, so your guesses don't go as far, but also you're a smaller player in the total speed. So think about this from let's say you're racing cars, okay? So you go out and you build the fastest race car that you can build today, or that you could afford today. Let's say your car is pretty good. You're competitive. Let's say you win every now and then. You win a race every now and then. You're competitive. But now in 6 months, some technology has come out, and people for the same amount of money can build, or even, let's say even a little bit more money, can build a much faster car. And now you're barely competitive. You're hardly ever winning races. Kind of makes sense? That's kind of the Bitcoin ASIC market, where they keep coming out with faster and faster and faster and faster ASICs. So if you just spent a whole bunch of money on some equipment to mine Bitcoin, that might be basically useless, in 6 months or 8 months. So I was mining Bitcoin with something called an Antminer S2 the last time I was mining Bitcoin, and I was doing pretty well for a while, but then ASICs went through the roof in terms of speed, and it got to the point where I just wasn't even a player anymore. So the cost of electricity was way higher than what you were getting out of Bitcoin. Now, in hindsight, I should have kept mining. I stopped mining Bitcoin because at that time Bitcoin was around like $270 a coin. When it had been up to like 1,400 a coin, and then it crashed and got, let's call it $200 a coin, $270 a coin. So they got to the point, but ASICs had already gotten faster. So now I got to the point where what I was earning in Bitcoin per month was less than what my electrical bill was per month. Now, that doesn't matter if you don't turn your Bitcoin into money, into US dollars. If I would have just held on to the Bitcoin and said, look, I'm going to pay my electric bill every month, I'm going to collect Bitcoin, and then when Bitcoin goes to 20 grand, I'll be happy. Right? Because then that would have made me a lot of money relative to my power bill. I just had to wait for it. So you're kind of investing. Every month you're throwing money into your power bill and not getting a whole lot in return except an amount of this fictitious thing. And that fictitious thing then became worth a lot more in the future. Does that make sense? But a lot of people stopped mining Bitcoin during that period of time and kind of went into some other currencies and that kind of stuff. But Bitcoin is just one example of one of the cryptocurrencies that is one of the implementations of blockchain technology. Any of these blockchain technologies all basically work this way. That's how blockchain works. Okay? Now, what changes between currencies is the guessing process. So this thing that I've talked about, guessing a number, Bitcoin uses something called SHA-256. Okay, that's a hashing algorithm. So really, when I talk about guessing numbers, what they're trying to do is they're trying to, the way a hash works, a hash is a function with an arbitrary sized input and a fixed size output. Okay, and what I mean by that is if you put in, let's think about this let's say I put in 1 gigabyte of data. It's going to spit out a 256-bit answer. All right, 256 bits. If I put in 10 gigabytes of data, so 10 times the amount of data, it's still going to spit out 256 bits of a bit answer. Different answer, but 256 bits. Make sense? It doesn't matter what size my input is to this function. I can dump anything into one end of this, and it will always spit out some number of zeros and ones that's 256 bits long. Okay? So that means the number of unique hashes is 2 to the 256 bit. 2 to the 256 power. So for SHA-256, that's 2 to the 256. So that's 1.15 times 10 to the 77th power. Giant number, but not infinity. Right? So that's the number of unique hashes that exist. Unique outputs. All right? So the answer to any block will be one of those guys. All right? But now, the size of a block, I mentioned earlier that a block is, the next guess is in terms of the previous blocks, all the previous blocks. So the input will be all the previous blocks plus the new block. All right, so the very first block that we were trying to make the guess on, you're saying, okay, here's one block. I'm going to try to guess the thing on this block. And really the way it works for Bitcoin, the way it works for SHA-256, forget about how they're trying to come up with that hash, that final answer. But what you're trying to do, and this would have been in like the early difficulties of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin was significantly easier to mine than it is today. So you needed less power. You were looking for that 256-bit output that starts with some number of zeros. So let's say in the early days, you're looking for some input. Okay, so you're taking the block, and you're taking that block plus your guess. All right, and you're shoving those guys into the SHA-256 algorithm. You're doing some stuff to them first. Okay, that's the special sauce or whatever, the Bitcoin sauce. Okay, so you're taking all the blocks that have existed to that point, which this is the very first block, so that's one block, plus your guess, the key that you're trying this time.
Okay.
You're mixing these guys together. You're shoving it into this blender called SHA-256. Spitting out the other end is going to be some 256-bit value. And maybe for the early difficulty, you were looking for a value that started with 5 zeros. If you got 5 zeros in a row at the beginning of it, you got an answer. You got a winner. Anything other than 5 zeros at the beginning of it, out the window. Make sense? Because that's going to be pretty rare. Because if you take, let's say you take that input. Let's say it's a 1 gigabyte input. If you change 1 bit of that 1 gigabyte input, remember a gigabyte is 1024 times 1024, well, here, number of bits. That's 1024 gigabytes times 1024 megabytes times 1024 kilobytes times 1024 bytes times 8. That's the number of bits in 1 gigabit or 1 gigabyte. If you change even one of those bits, you'll get a very different answer. The 256-bit output will be very different. Make sense? So even just a tiny, tiny bit of variability will get you a completely different answer. It's not really a predictable output. Because you think about with hashes, since you have an arbitrary size input, the input is any size, and your output's always a fixed size. That means you potentially could have 2 inputs that give you the exact same output. It's called a collision. It's unlikely, but there are only 2 to the 256 unique outputs. Yet there's an infinity number of inputs. Make sense? I can give it a 1-bit input. I can give it a 2-bit input. I can give it a 3-bit input. I can give it a 7 gigabyte input. Doesn't matter how big my input is, it will always spit out a 256-bit output. And there's only 2 to the 256-bit number of those unique outputs. So there's a smaller number of outputs than there are of inputs. That means you potentially can have 2 inputs that hash the same output. And that's okay. That doesn't break Bitcoin.
And is that why there can be multiple answers kind of then?
Potentially, but it's not the only reason. But yeah, you could. That would be like a legitimate reason to get a different answer without anybody really trying to cheat the system. It just so happened that 2 people guessed an input that on that exact same, they had a key that mixed with the current block with all the previous blocks with it that happened to produce the exact same output. They got an answer. But actually, it doesn't even need to be the exact same output with Bitcoin. It just has to be one that starts with 5 zeros. So it's even more likely.
Okay.
Because you could have, since there's 256 bits, 251 of those bits are meaningless. Only the first 5 are important in that. But now it's a lot more than that. The difficulty is a lot higher. So it's like, the first 19 have to be zeros, which really cuts into the, possible answers. But also on top of that, the security is built on that the next guess is not just based on the current block. It's the current block plus all the previous blocks. That's where that arbitrary size input comes in. So if you have a chain that looks like this, and now block 4 is trying to be validated. Okay, so this is the guy we're trying to add to our chain. We're going to take block 4 along with block 0, 1, 2, and 3, along with each miner's guess. And that's what we're going to feed as input into the SHA-256 algorithm. So it's not just this block, it's this block plus all the previous blocks that have already existed. That's your input. So that means that the next block, its security is based on not just itself and not just its guess, but all the other blocks that have already been validated and added to the blockchain.
Okay.
So the likelihood of corruption is super, super, super low, even for it to happen once. For it to happen multiple times, but since we're always picking the longest chain, if we have multiple chains, I mean, we're getting into astronomical types of percentages in terms of chances. To the point where, I mean, by all intents and purposes, it would be impossible for somebody to actually break the blockchain. You know, maybe we say nothing's impossible, but it's mathematically improbable at a humongous level. Does that make sense? So we don't have to understand the nitty gritty of exactly how SHA-256 works. But in general, the longer the blockchain gets, the more secure it's going to get, because the next block's validity is based on it plus all the other blocks that have ever been verified, plus your guess against the current difficulty of the network. So it adds up to a lot of work. So when this guy gets added to the blockchain, when he finally gets validated, when somebody finds the correct number of zeros going first, and everybody tries that on their inputs and say, oh yeah, that worked. Good for you. You won. Then they all give the thumbs up, and that block gets added to the end of the chain. And then this becomes the new input to the next one, along with the next new block, along with their guess. And then they're even doing some other things with that, with SHA-256. So they're really mixing it up a lot to make this happen. All right, so that's what kind of adds security to blockchain. All right, this is the mining process that we're talking about here. This is stuff you wouldn't want to do by hand, even if you did do by hand. And there's videos out there. You can do one round of SHA-256 by hand, one guess. Okay, it'll take you about 15 minutes to do all the math for it. And it's not horrible math. It's just adding binary numbers, kind of stuff we've been doing in class.
Yeah.
We haven't added yet, but it's just working with binary numbers. It's not incredibly hard, but that's to test one guess. Okay, and the chances of you getting one guess right, given a gigantic size input, compared to the current difficulty of the network, the chances of you getting it right the first time, not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a minimum of millions of guesses, let's say, which is going to take a human being a long time to do, which would take a CPU, not as long, but a long time to do, which would take a GPU, your graphics card, not as long as a CPU, but still a long time to do. That's why ASICs have become popular, because these guys are computers. See, this guy right here. So your CPU inside your computer is general purpose. It's built for solving all sorts of problems on computers, right? But you could also use it to do the math associated with SHA-256. So if we think about how mining works, or what tools you can use for mining. So you can certainly do it by hand. That would be super slow. Then you can go by CPU. We're going to say faster than by hand, but still slow at current network difficulty. And let's just throw this for Bitcoin, because there are still some coins you can mine by CPU. It all is going to come down to network difficulty and how many people you're competing with. Right? So, if Bob's coin came out yesterday that has 3 people mining it, you could probably, mine it via CPU no problem, because at that point you're a pretty big fish in a pretty small network. Yeah.
Do you have any, are there any pools that are limited by hardware?
Not for Bitcoin.
Or I mean, in the cryptocurrency world that you know of?
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, that's where we're going here. All right, so CPU. This is how people mined Bitcoin in the earliest days. Nobody mined it by hand. Okay, so they use their CPU, this general purpose tool that can do a zillion different things, including the math associated with mining Bitcoin. All right, then when that started not keeping up with the Joneses, because more and more people started mining with their CPUs, then a couple of companies came out with mining software that would actually leverage your graphics card, your GPU. So this is faster than CPU, but still slow at current network difficulty. Keep in mind, we're talking specifically for Bitcoin. GPUs are, that's where it's at for a lot of the algorithms today, right? Because modern algorithms, I'll mention this again in a little bit, are what are called ASIC resistant. They've said that the algorithms are based to not allow there to be special purpose chips. So if we're talking Bitcoin right now, today, people use ASICs, application specific integrated circuits. So these are faster than GPUs because they are purpose built to only solve SHA-256. It is a processor. Here, let's just do crypto bootcamp. So this is effectively a machine that has a whole bunch of processors. So the fastest ASICs have more of these specialized processors on them, so they can fit more on the board. But each of these processors is not general purpose. It can't solve all the problems of your CPU. It's not even as general purpose as a GPU. It is a computer chip that only knows how to do SHA-256. That's it. Okay? So then what we do is we take that one chip that knows how to do SHA-256, and we put it right next to 500 of his buddies that only know how to do SHA-256. And then we put it next to 500 more and 500 more, and that's where you get the faster and faster miners, because now each of those chips is making guesses. But they're able to check those guesses because they're building something that is only optimized for solving that one math problem. Make sense? So how do these miners keep getting faster and faster? Technology keeps letting us make those chips smaller and smaller and smaller, which lets us put more and more and more and more of them onto the board. Okay, we're also making them, optimizing them, making them faster and faster and faster, doing the math, and making energy efficiency better and better and better, so that the same amount of power allows you to drive more and more chips that are doing faster and faster and faster, lets the ASIC do more and more work. Make sense? That's why we can't keep up with the Joneses, because they are still making smaller and smaller chips, ASIC chips, which allow you to get more out of the same size piece of equipment, or make bigger pieces of equipment and get more stuff on it, that type of thing. All right, so this becomes the problem with Bitcoin, where normal folk like us really can't compete in this anymore. The financial resources aren't there. The power grid isn't there. I mean, some of these places you're pulling too much power, your house can't keep up, that type of thing. So you need to have a very specialized setup to work in Bitcoin right now from a mining perspective. Okay? Now, having said that, so that's when we're talking about Bitcoin. So then we start looking at competitors. And really, when we're talking about competitors, we're talking about competitors to SHA-256. Competitors to the algorithm. There are other coins that use SHA-256. There are other coins that use some of these other algorithms. So, for instance, there's an algorithm called Equihash. All right, and Equihash is, by its name implies this. It is what's called ASIC resistant. So this is purpose built or purpose implemented to to adhere to, and in crypto mining it would usually be called one GPU, or one card, one vote is usually the way that you look at it. You have one graphics card, you get one vote. So you're an equal player. All right, so with Equihash, the difference between the super pro, I'm mining Bitcoin Gold right now, but you could be Bitcoin Gold, it can be Zcash is another Equihash thing, but the difference between a super pro Bitcoin Gold miner, which is not Bitcoin, it's a derivative of Bitcoin, but whatever. So super pro Bitcoin gold miner and student living in dorm with gaming computer is how many graphics cards you have, not the speed of one. So if you're a super pro Bitcoin gold miner where that's your whole livelihood, you run a farm, okay, for Bitcoin gold mining, you are going to have a bunch of 1060s. Maybe you have, maybe each rig you can have up to, let's call it reasonable. You can actually put 16 in one, but let's just call it, you might have 10 graphics cards in a single computer. And then you get 20 computers, right? So now you have 200 graphics cards, right? That would be a professional level type thing. This person is making their entire living off of keeping those machines running 24/7. Make sense? But on a per graphics card basis, they are no better than he is.
Okay.
That make sense? I mean, ideal world today for you guys would be if you could afford to build just a crazy rig running off of Concordia's power bill. Okay. But realistically speaking, what I would recommend to you guys, I mean, this is not necessarily a get rich quick scheme. In fact, if you want to get into crypto and you want to make money off of crypto quickly, you're best off buying crypto, right? Because the idea here is if we, let's just look at, a BTG mining calculator. All right, so your 1060 here is probably going to mine at about, we'll give you a little nod. Let's say 300 sols a second. Think of it as RPMs for a car or something like that. Different algorithms name their speed a little differently. So like Bitcoin, it's hashes per second, which then becomes kilohashes per second, which then becomes gigahashes per second, and now they're in petahashes per second is what most of the ASICs are measured at. I mean, so it becomes ridiculous. You're just going up. So that's related to what we talked about in class, right? So a hash per second to a kilohash per second, there's 1,024 hash per seconds in 1 kilohash per second. There's 1,024 kilohashes per second in 1 gigahash per second. It's all related, right? These are just numbering systems. So you'll get 300 sols a second on your card. And you're a Concordia, so you're not paying your power bill. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the cost per hour is. And let's say it's the average pool that you're paying 0.5% fee on the pool. So whoever's kind of organizing that army of people and has written the software in the middle to take all your work, put it together, and go into guessing for the next block. And then when the block gets won by you guys, it divvies up a little bit to you, a little bit to you, a little bit to you, based on the amount of work you did. All right, so they're doing all that work, and they're taking 0.5% of the pot. Here, I'll go ahead and put Zcash in there too, just so it compares it, because this particular one does it. Right now, Zcash is a little bit more profitable because Bitcoin, all crypto is way down right now. But for a while, Bitcoin Gold was by far the most profitable. And I think it's going to get back to that point. So I'm mining this for a couple reasons. One is I think you could be a much bigger fish in this pool right now because it is less popular than Zcash. So you're a smaller card, you're a bigger fish. Even though you're mining less by today's US dollar value, you will get more Bitcoin Gold than you will get Zcash. So if you believe that Bitcoin Gold will go up faster or at least track with Zcash, you'll have more of this commodity than you will of this commodity, right? So you'll earn US dollars faster than you're earning euros. Now it's just a matter of which of these is worth more relative and multiplied by how many of those you have. So I happen to think Bitcoin Gold is the place to be right now, but it's a guess. I mean, we're talking coin flip type thing. Bitcoin Gold's young. It's only been out for less than a year. So it's what's called a hard fork. Let me talk about those right now because that's something else you'll read about. So hard fork. So when you see this in the crypto world, you mostly see this in related to Bitcoin because Bitcoin's the big player, but they do hard forks of other things. So there is an original Bitcoin algorithm. Okay, It's based on SHA-256. But, the original algorithm that they came out with, that's publicly available. You can look at the source code, so you can see nobody's cheating. So that's what makes these things secure is, this isn't some government agency or even a person. Somebody wrote this, or maybe a team of people wrote it, but they put it out there for the public to review the source code and say, yeah, that looks legit. Nobody's stealing anything off the top. We'll join that. We'll mine on that currency, and we think that's good. Well, you might have a group that comes along that thinks they can improve upon the original. All right? And you might have a whole bunch of other people that say, yeah, some of your ideas sound pretty legit. All right? So then what they would do is, so if they think they can improve some of the something from the original, and there's enough people, I mean, really anybody can create a hard fork of it. In fact, most crypto coins that are out there are forks of the original thing with little tweaks done to it, like 10 minutes becomes 3 minutes, that kind of stuff. But if you get enough following, so for instance, you've heard of Bitcoin Cash. Maybe Bitcoin Cash was was the original hard fork of Bitcoin. So a group of people came along and said, you know what? Here's some problems with Bitcoin. Here's our proposed fixes to that problem, whether it's switching from SHA-256 to a different algorithm or whatever it is. Okay? Here's some solutions to it. One day what they'll do is they'll do a hard fork of, so on day one, they create a duplicate of the current Bitcoin blockchain. And that becomes the starting point for the new coins blockchain. All right, so in actuality, because of when I was scammed out of 15 Bitcoins, my 15 Bitcoins on the blockchain existed prior to that first hard fork. So in actuality, whoever has my 15 Bitcoins now also has 15 Bitcoin Cash, and also has 15 Bitcoin Gold, and also has any other derivative of those things, because those transactions existed on the blockchain earlier than any of those things happened. So it's part of the copy. That makes sense? So my transactions exist on for instance, Bitcoin Cash exist on their blockchain because they existed on the Bitcoin blockchain prior to the fork. All right, so then from that day forward, there are two blockchains because there are two different currencies. So at this point, it's no different than having Bitcoin versus Ethereum. They're completely different currencies at this point. The second one just happened to kind of get a head start by taking an existing blockchain as its base, which also then encourages people who are already into Bitcoin to come over and maybe mine Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Gold, because maybe they can be more of a legitimate player in that world, but also, they already have some starter money. They already have some, if you already had Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash comes out, you immediately have Bitcoin Cash ready to go. Okay, so now you're already, it's like, you've already been pre-rewarded on that network. So why don't you just keep building it up? Or you can just keep your Bitcoin Cash and see what it turns into. That makes sense? That's what they're talking about when they say hard fork. All right. So there's lots of different competitors. So there's probably 10 different or so legitimate alternate algorithms to SHA-256. But I'll just talk about Equihash here because just pointing out a different one is just as good as pointing out anything else. You want in on this? We're talking about crypto.
Oh, okay.
So in any case, there's plenty of different competitors to this guy. Now, one of the things, this guy's ASIC resists. How do you spell resistant? Is it A? So this guy's ASIC resistant, so it tries to make everybody on an equal playing field. So these are the kinds of things that you guys should look at because you already have equipment that might be able to do this stuff at a worthwhile level where you either offset the cost of your current machine or maybe it helps you get your next upgraded graphics card. This isn't something you're going to make $1 zillion off by mining. Okay? But maybe it gives you, let's assume that the cost of any of these cryptocurrencies, the value of them goes nowhere. All right? So let's just say it's right where it's at right now, which is pretty low compared to where it's been in the last 6 months, but pretty high relative to where it was day one. All right? So take something like Bitcoin Gold. It's sitting around, I don't know, 100. Let's just call it around $150 a month. So we go back to this calculator here, or $150 per coin. So we go back to this calculator here, and this is him. Okay, so he's going to make, if the number doesn't go anywhere, he's going to make $1.35 a day. Times, assuming you're here all year round, so you're going to make $500 a year.
That's free.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah. It's putting a little wear and tear in your graphics card, but not very much because all of these things are low-powered things. So you're not going to notice your machine giving off tons of heat. The machine's not going to be making a bunch of noise. Power bill will go up a little bit, but this isn't like an ASIC type of thing, right? So you can look at it to type thing. Realistically speaking, you'll be replacing your graphics card before its life has been even diminished at all. You can even make the argument that maybe it wouldn't wear out at all, but you are running it 24 hours a day. So under just normal wear and tear and heat and stuff like that, it might have, you might reduce the life of it a little bit in terms of number of hours it runs, but it's not really a problem. Okay. So with that one card, you're making $500 a year. That's if it goes nowhere. If it goes back to where it was even a month ago, where it was up to around, so it's about half of where it was. Now it's actually less than half of where it was a month ago. So now you're up to over 1,000 a year, just from having this one computer in a wooden box. Okay. Mine stuff when you're not playing your games. Okay. Now you definitely want to stop the miner when you start playing your games.
I've done them.
Okay, because you will have very poor performance.
Oh, zero. It's
Yeah.
nothing.
But like I don't turn any coins. So I wrote some software that I'm doing some specialized mining stuff for a project I'm working on. So I don't turn coins into money, into US dollars. Maybe eventually I'll do it and donate it to the department or something to buy crap and whatever. But I'm doing it for another purpose. So crypto technology is of interest to me from the computer science perspective of it. So I invest in cryptocurrency. So I own a bunch of cryptocurrency with US dollars and I invest in it. So if you think it's something that's going to go up in value and it's look at this. So you're going to earn, how does it say how many coins you'll get? Here. So you'll have 0.097 coins per day. So you have that times 365. So you're going to make 3.5 Bitcoin Gold a year. All right, 3.5 Bitcoin Gold per year. Now maybe that's going to be worth something. Hey, Bitcoin Gold could go to $1,000 a coin. It legitimately could. I mean, that's entirely possible. I might even say I don't know about 20,000 in the short term, but I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if Bitcoin Gold was worth 5,000 at the end of 2018. Yeah, but the point is that wouldn't be completely out of the question. That's not complete pipe dream stuff. It could also be worth $6 per coin. It goes either way. Okay, but the point is that if you're really getting into crypto to make money off of it, you don't mine crypto. At an amateur level, right? You say I'm going to buy. So I'm heavily invested in Ripple right now, which is a coin that kind of helps banks. So it's kind of something that lives in the middle. So I bought a bunch of Ripple. And I'm going to hold on to that Ripple. And when I think I've made a reasonable profit, I will sell that Ripple maybe move back into Ethereum or something. And if I decide, hey, I think it's time to get out with US dollars or pull some of it out, so I already made a bunch off of it. So actually what I currently have invested is all profit. So I'm not risking any real US dollars. I'm risking made US dollars that are sitting out there. So if I lose it all, I'm still up overall. But it's a fun thing. But the point is that, that's how you make money in crypto, or that's also how you lose a lot of money in crypto, is putting your real hard-earned dollars into this highly speculative world, right? And then hoping for the best, preparing for the worst type thing. So if you guys are going to use the machines you already have to do some mining, and you're going to turn it into US dollars, maybe if you cash it out, you can, some of you might decide to cash it out once a month. You might decide to cash it out once every 6 months. Maybe you just keep it in there and hope for the pipe dream. And when you do need your new graphics card, maybe you decide, well, if you don't have enough money in your checking account, you pull some of your crypto out to afford it. Whatever it is, you're not probably going to buy a Ferrari. It's not impossible, right? So I don't want to dash your dreams, okay? But the way to make money on crypto is not mining, okay? If you really believe crypto is going to go through the roof. So right now, crypto is pretty low compared to where it has been. For all we know, it could go lower, but it's pretty low compared to where it has been, and I think it's going to bounce back pretty hard here in the next 6 months. So my opinion would be that if somebody got into crypto today, let's say you bought Ripple today. Ripple's about $1.15 a coin today. Well, it was $3.50 a coin a month ago. I think it's completely reasonable to expect Ripple to be at $10 a coin at the end of this year, for example. But it might not be, right? But so now you have a 10 times return on dollars you invested in Ripple today. But Ripple isn't even a mineable currency. You cannot mine it. Okay. It's a currency made to support the banks. And actually, the reason I believe so much in Ripple, I actually don't like their business model. It's kind of goes against this whole idea of decentralized stuff. So the Ripple company is a for-profit company. And so they generated all the Ripple coins that will already exist already. And the company took half of them. All right? And then what they do is they create partnerships with banks, real banks, that are using US dollars and euros and all that stuff, because the problem they're trying to solve, and that kind of goes back to this idea of blockchain. The real magic here is blockchain technology. That's the computer science benefit of this. The coins that's the extraneous piece. And fine, some people are getting rich off it. Some people are losing their shirt off of it. At the end of the day, it's going to average out to it's what's necessary to push blockchain forward. That's created the interest in it. But what they're saying is, so the problem today is, let's say you want to take 100,000 US dollars and you want to send it to China. That takes about a week using existing banks with money transfers and validating that money leaves here and goes through the exchange rates and all this other stuff. Okay? In fact, the joke is it's faster for you to just take your US dollars on an airplane, fly to China, and go and deposit it in a bank over there. You'd be quicker. All right? Well, so what Ripple is doing is they've created relationships with the banks. So you go in, you turn US dollars into Ripple, use the Ripple network to send your Ripple over to China, to an account in China, turn your Ripple back into Chinese yen over there, and goes into an account. That takes 3 seconds. Okay, so that's the problem Ripple is solving. We're probably pretty far off from having, Walmart accepting, Ethereum for, your purchases, because it's not something that's friendly for humans to use, for just the average Joe to use that kind of stuff. But banks and things like that can benefit from Ripple today. And they're way more accepting of something like that makes their life better. Banks love money. So if this bank over here can get their yen quicker, they're cool with that. And if it has to live in the form of Ripple for a second, yeah, no problem. They're fine with that. They're just benefiting from the blockchain of Ripple to validate that transaction, which is something that banks are doing very slowly now because it's hodgepodge together, because it's something that existed before airplanes, right? They used to have to take this stuff over there by boat Okay, or before that, I guess you might have had like Chuck Norris swimming the Atlantic for all money transfers. But in any case, that's a practical use of blockchain and a cryptocurrency today. I mean, it's practical today. It's not trying to replace fiat currencies. Does that kind of make sense? Now, I believe that some form of crypto in the future will replace kind of, if you read sci-fi books, and most of them, they kind of say, some number of credits. They call their currency credits, right? So, maybe there'll be some sort of worldwide currency that exists in something like that. That'll be crypto-based, but that's not going to happen until it's less speculative. So, I mean, this isn't something that's happening in the next year. Maybe 10 years from now, that might be legitimate. But right now, think of it like the gold, the gold rush. There's enough people playing the game that there's some money to be made there in the middle if that's of interest to you. And maybe it offsets the cost of your next computer or something like that. That's the world you should be looking at. Not how do I become the next Ethereum millionaire. Okay? If you want to do that, buy a bunch of Ethereum. Buy Ethereum at $950 a coin today. Cross your fingers, hope it goes to 50,000, sell, and go buy your Ferrari. Right? That's so we're kind of on a similar playing field here. Yeah, so this isn't a get-rich-quick thing. This is how can you leverage the computing power you already have along with your computer science knowledge to support a technology that's going to be part of our voting systems, all sorts of stuff. I mean, blockchain is a good technology. But whether you're going to be able to be buying crap with crypto at Walmart, that's a crapshoot. See what I'm saying? But it happens to have value to some people right now, so why shouldn't you benefit from it? Yeah, go ahead. You forgot your question?
Yeah.
Oh, I was looking. Stan, he couldn't make it today. He had a question for you. What software do you use to mine?
Okay, well, I'll show you guys, but
Alright.
so what I mine, well, here, I'll just cover that real quick. So I mine Bitcoin Gold. I used to mine on this pool. I mine on a different pool now, but this pool will have the same tutorial for it. BTG pool. All right, so, and they list, I think, some other pools. They have a bunch of pools. So I mentioned alternate algorithms before. So this particular pool, BTG pool, has a whole bunch of coins you can mine for that use the Equihash algorithm, and then a bunch that you can mine for that use the ETH-ash algorithm. Both of these are ASIC resistant. So most things that you're looking at today, you want to look at stuff where people are mining with GPUs. Period. All right, go ahead.
So you could mine for any of that stuff?
Yeah, but you're going to choose one.
So I mean, like, these are probably worth like less than $5. These, like,
Not this guy.
No, I mean like on the ones that are like, that I've never heard of.
Probably that's true.
So would there be a benefit to doing that in case they shot up? I mean, or is it?
Well, okay,
it would be unbeneficial.
That's the speculative piece of it, right? So if you think Victorium, for example, there's a here. Let's see if I can. Here, I don't know the site that I use this thing called CoinMarket app. Here, let's see if it's on here. CoinMarket.
Whalecoin is 0.1 of a dollar. So I mean, like you could.
Yeah. So for instance, here's all coins.
Also, it'd be like penny stocks, but mining for penny stocks.
But so here's the point. So here's all coins, and here's their ranking, and this is their ranking in terms of market cap. That is the amount of money that is transmitted between these things on a daily basis. Their volume, rather. Okay. So Bitcoin's number 1, Ethereum's number 2, Ripple's number 3. Anything in the top 5 is completely legit. Okay. Anything really in the top 25, for instance, I'm big into Monero. I think Monero is going to be a big deal, kind of for some unethical reasons. Not that Monero is natively unethical, but one of the things that Monero, so for instance, with Bitcoin, we mentioned that the blockchain is public. So I can go back and I can look at my 15 Bitcoins going from my account to the destination account on the public blockchain today. I don't know who that person is. I just know what the address was, so I can see it publicly. Okay. So if people got wind of what your Bitcoin account number was, and you always made all transactions from one address, they could figure out how many Bitcoin you have in total. So what do they do to start going against that? They make every individual transaction a unique address and then have all those mapped back to your official address. So you're never actually using your real address, so it's difficult for them to trace it back to you. Monero actually encrypts as well as puts false things out there as part of the blockchain. So it has like fake transactions. So you might see 5 transactions and only one of them is real.
Okay.
So it's let's call it very anonymous. So Monero might be something that like terrorist groups and things like that might use for moving stuff between, buying things completely anonymously, or even countries, if we're going to say they're kind of corrupt too. Because these are people that maybe if they need $1 million worth of something, they might be willing to pay $2 million to do that completely anonymously. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that might be a coin or coins like that focus on the complete anonymity. They might be leveraged to do some of that stuff. And you actually see Monero is coming back pretty hard. It had been as high as 450. So actually Monero is doing better than a lot of coins are right now. In terms of, it dropped with all the crypto recently, but it's doing okay. Bitcoin used to be at 20 grand. Ethereum was at 1450. Ripple was at 350. That's $1.19. So you can kind of see.
So Ripple, Ripple's third place and it's only worth $1.
Yeah, but they have $46 billion in market capitalization.
Oh yeah.
So it's that type of thing. Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Cardano. I'm also investing in Stellar. Stellar is kind of like Ripple. It's like a competitor to Ripple. I have a lot in Monero. There's Bitcoin Gold. It's at 141. So in any case, you can go through this, but if you go all the way down here, this just shows you 100, right? You go to view all, you're going to find Bob's coin at the bottom. Here, that's just 163. Here, so you got the here we're still going.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh.
Let's just go to around 1,000 for market cap. All right, here's 1,000. Waves Go coin, WGO. Market cap of, that's $1 million. So it's not a joke, but it's mostly a joke. You see what I'm saying?
So you're not going to make anything?
You could. For all you know, if you, first of all, you got to find a place where you can actually buy Waves Go. Okay, because I'm gonna tell you in a few minutes how exchanges work, but you'd have to find a place that you could work with WGO. Right now it's at 11 cents a coin. So let's say you bought 1,000 of those, and tomorrow it went to 50 cents. Sell it, you make $1 zillion, right? You make 5 times your money in a day, or it might go down to 3 cents, and you've lost most of your money in a day. Okay. The point is that these guys are going to be highly speculative because you're trying to guess which of these coins is going to do something, right? We're not even at the bottom. Here, is this the bottom? Here, 1541. We got the D market coin.
Worth $7.
$7.
Yes.
This is $7. This is 67 cents.
No,
Oh, it's question mark.
Yeah, this has no
it was
market
like a
cap.
7, yeah.
Yeah, this has no market cap. They're just like we think somebody has some of these. You get what I'm saying? So I wouldn't trust anything outside of maybe the top 25. Top 25 means that the people are legitimately using those things. So
So have you ever thought about Dogecoin?
yeah, actually, No, actually, I have about 11 million Doji coins.
Why is that even a thing?
Wait, Doji?
I call them Doge. But,
Doji coins, yeah.
Yeah.
It was based off of a meme.
Yeah, but
Are you serious? Oh
Yeah.
my
It can be
God.
seriously
Yeah.
profitable too, though. I mean, like,
Oh my god.
it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
a big
and if
thing.
you go here, I mean, where's where are we at here with this guy?
it's trading at less than a cent.
Yeah, but 11 million. That's how you.
And I think I bought him at like 0.0003 or something like that.
Then it's profitable. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
It's not a lot.
But it's hard to find places where you can trade them.
How do you do it?
I don't. I just hold them.
How do you get them?
Years ago, I mean, remember, I've been in crypto for years. So years ago, some of the exchanges had Doji. So CEX.io had Doji coin on it. So several of them actually allowed you to have Doji. I wonder if Binance has Doji coin.
So how many crypto wallets do you have? Different ones.
I actually keep a lot of my stuff in Binance, which is on an exchange, which probably isn't really recommended. But I tend to just trust technology pretty well. Let me just check here. Yeah, can't trade Doji on here. You can trade Ripple. You can trade Ripple. Oh, actually, let's look at Ethereum for Doji, just in case it's on one of the other ones. Not there, not there, not there, not there, not there. Okay, yeah, no Doji on there. But yeah, I keep a lot on Binance. Then I have some other wallets, and I have some stuff over in some foreign exchanges because some trading. Sometimes I'll do stuff where I will buy a coin on like a Korean exchange and then sell it on an American exchange, or vice versa, because you actually make like a quick 11% just because of the differences between the trading in those currencies and those exchanges. But then you have to have an accounts on these different things, and you have to pretend like you're from Korea and and stuff like that. Well, yeah, that's kind of the thing. So it's not really kind of a legitimate thing. And I actually don't. I did it for a little bit. I don't do it too much anymore because now it's become more global. So pretty much all the exchanges have kind of the same value now. So I have some stuff spread around and things like that. But the point is that if you want to be in these things for investment purposes, you don't mind. You buy them and you either buy and hold and sell at some point, or some people, there's some bots that will connect into Binance that will just do constant buys and sells for different things, and some of them worked okay, some of them don't. It's one of those things that it might be great for a month, and then you lose half your gains the next month. So I don't really buy into the bots, but it does automate it, so it does it all for you, all the buys and sells. But in any case, a fun thing to do right now, since within a week you typically have. Let's just use if we use Ripple as an example. Go back here. So let's click on Ripple's chart. And do they let me? Okay, so let's look at Ripple's 7-day. Okay, so had you bought Ripple right in here at $1.14 and then sold it here at $1.17, so that's 3 cents you made in the middle. But if you had enough Ripple, that's a legitimate profit.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So you can play on those little swings, similar to here. So here's Ripple at $1.15. So if we go back 3 months, you see Ripple here at $3.79. It was at some point there, $3.77. So if you came in, so I got into Ripple initially right around 40 cents, so kind of here, and then I rode it up to here. Not quite three. Yeah, it was around 340 something is where I kind of got out. Then I sold off about half of it. So I got profit from 40 cents up to $3.5 on half. Then my other half I've written it down, so I'm still holding it here. And then around $1.20 or so, I added to my position. So that was back in. So I actually added around here. So since then it dropped some more, but now it's kind of coming back and so on and so forth. You kind of see how it. So you could play the game of, buy and sell in these little windows because right now it's doing a lot of yo-yoing like that. But you're trying to make guesses at where's the bottom and where's the top. So it's very speculative. You don't want to do this with money you can't lose. It's the thing. So mining is fun. Mining is computer sciencey, using your technology to do something. You might be wasting your time. You're not doing any damage to your equipment. You're not paying the power bill right now. Anyways, even if you were, it's negligible. I mean, the amount of power it takes to drive your GPU compared to driving like ASICs is pennies. So you asked about, so if I'm going to do Bitcoin Gold, so you were asking about what technology we use. So if I click on Bitcoin Gold here, it's going to take me to this guy. So this is the pool. And let's see, here's the servers. So the compatible Bitcoin mining software they have here, the one I use is EWBF because I use NVIDIA cards. Here's another one you can use, but this one's specific. They use the same algorithm, so this is a Zcash one, but since it uses the same algorithm, it works. I've never actually used this one, but I use this EWBF one, so you just click on the Windows version of this. It downloads it tells me, this is dangerous. Because it has stuff. This is for Mac. I won't run on here anyways. But be prepared for your Windows system to think this thing looks like a virus. So again, use your own judgment. But I allow it, and I haven't had issues. So I'll go ahead and discard it because I can't use it on this machine anyways. But you'll download that guy, and then let me go ahead and go ahead.
I can't get on I keep getting Google caches of the site.
Are you on the?
On the network.
Just do a Google search for BTG pool.
Yeah, the same thing, Sam. Probably you get.
I'm on the Wi-Fi.
Do you have Falcon?
I'm on FalconNet.
I can get on.
Or you're probably logged into a ad. Somewhere.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm on my faculty account, but I don't think on FalconNet that makes a difference.
It might, because we get blocked from a lot of stuff when teachers can get them.
But we have to be on our wired network in order to get. So some things I have to do on my wired network. So if you do a Google search for BTG Pro and you follow the link, it doesn't take you there.
No,
It just says the site can't be reached.
yeah, I got the same.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't it.
Because I think it's probably HTTPS. That's why I suggested you get to it through a search instead of typing it in directly.
Which doesn't. I mean, you show saved copies of the site, but you can't see the actual site.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but in any case, I download this software, and then what you do is you create a. Actually, you don't even create an account on here. Let me. Oh, actually, I'm lying. You do create an account. So I'll show you the thing on here, but if I go to, I usually do this on my phone.
Use a VPN.
It's actually interesting that you have to go through a VPN, and I didn't realize that my faculty foo gave me any additional privileges on FalconNet.
It works now.
It's probably the other way around. It's probably that maybe faculty foo numbers, they don't say I'm in a different group. They're just, it's not that we're given extra privileges, it's that since we're not in the student group, we don't fall underneath all the other filters or something like that. Yeah. So in any case, you create an account on here. Once you have your account on here, what it's going to do is just going to give you this address. Okay, so it's going to give you a Bitcoin Gold address once you have your account. And I'm trying to see where can I log in for my account here. Oh, I'm not on BTG Pool. Let's see what pool I'm on. Probably should write this down somewhere. I am on Mining Pool Hub. Before I forget, I'm going to copy this and put it into a note. Okay, so I'm at Mining Pool Hub. So this is the one I use, and I've had good luck with this. So Mining Pool Hub supports a bunch of different pools. I use the Bitcoin Gold one. So that's bitcoin-gold.miningpoolhub.com. So I'll go ahead and log in here.
So if we're going to be doing this, should we sign up right now?
Yeah, you can go ahead and create an account. So you can register an account. So this is, if you just go to miningpoolhub.com, and then you click on the Bitcoin Gold thing on the far left, it should take you to bitcoingold.miningpoolhub.com.
Do you recommend using an alternate email address for stuff, or
I don't, but you know, just choose your poison.
We go to sign up and then into Mining Pool Hub. The things that we should just create an account there.
Yeah, so you go to Mining Pool Hub. Here, let me just log out real quick. I think, so I would go to Bitcoin Gold first. So once you're here, click sign up. And you can create your username and PIN and all that stuff.
no password, extremely weak?
That,
So OTP, you have not enabled OTP currently?
I don't,
Okay.
but I'm pretty trusting. So I don't really do I usually will pick convenience over,
I'm going to hassle.
yeah, even though that might burn you sometimes or something, but I would definitely use a password.
And then they ask for a PIN too.
Yeah. So I have a PIN and all that stuff, but so once you have your account, you can log in. So when you log in, you get something that looks like this. So my current hash rate is 3.2 kilohash per second. So if we do the calculator thing, oh yeah, that's taking me to the right place. That's actually a little bit low. So that's 3,200 souls per second. So it's 1481 a day.
Oh, so that's live time for like what your rigs are running on?
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so 5,400 a year at the current price, if I cashed it out. But I typically don't. At some point, have lunch with me. I can give you my backstory. Money is a very fleeting thing. Don't focus on it. Focus on your passion, God-given gifts, things like that, and let the money take care of itself. Okay, so yeah, so this will show your current hash rate versus the pool's hash rate. So the pool's total hash rate is 10.54 mega hashes. So I'm at 3.2 times or divided by 1,024. So I'm at 0.003125 mega hashes. And then if I take, oh, there, finally copied. $10.54. So if I take my thing, divide it by 10.54. So I am less than 1% of the full pool mining power. But I'm okay. So if you looked out here, I was offline some of the last couple of hours or last 24 hours. But in general, I make like 0.12, 0.14 Bitcoin gold per day. So every time.
That per day, but then the current price.
Yeah, but you can't. The current price only means something if you're cashing it out.
Yeah.
Right. So I just collect coins. I may never cash it out. I might move it into something else or whatever. So it's only going to be meaningful in your wallet if you turn it into dollars. So in any case, you do that. Then if you click on and I'll show you how you set this up. So I click on my workers. So each of my machines will show a different value. So here's the machines that I have it running on. So I have 6 computers that I have this guy running on. They're all active. I'm monitoring them. That way I'll get an email if something bad happens to one of these guys. It shows me the current rate. So I'm getting 375. This is a 370 or a 1070 card. So I'm getting 370 hash per second. This guy is a 1080 Ti plus a 1050 Ti. This guy is the 1070. This guy is a 1070 plus a 1080 normal.
TI does that big of a.
Yeah, this is actually usually the faster one. So this guy is this is just a snapshot of like the most recent.
Okay.
It fluctuates a little bit. This is usually my fastest machine. This is close to it.
What is that one? Or is that one in school?
All of these are in school except for this one.
Okay.
Would you mind showing us any of the machines?
Yeah, I'll show it. Then this one is a 1070 and this one is a 1070 as well. So, these are the same card. Just in this exact moment, one's performing better than another one. All right, so those are all my machines, and I'll just show you here through TeamViewer. So I'll show you this is the one that has a 1070 plus a 1080 in it. I have an older version of TeamViewer on here. So this is how I usually do it for my phone. But I can remote into the machine so I need to restart it or something like that.
So did you have that TeamViewer on both computers, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the client on the computer you want to remote into, and then you have the full version on here, so it shows all your machines. So you can double click on it to get to your machines. All right, so let's go back into this guy. All right, can I? Let's make this a little bit more palatable for your eyes. All right, so we can see that at least a little bit better. Yeah, if you want somebody run back there on the light thing, press the 3rd button down from the top. That should start looking a lot better. See it better? All right. So this is the actual mining software. So I'm actually going to, while I'm at it here, I'm going to put, so I keep it on the C drive inside of a folder. Actually, on this one, I don't. I should probably actually do that. So I'm going to create a new folder on here called crypto, and I actually have that whole thing inside the downloads folder right now. So,
Are you able to move this since it's open?
huh?
Are you able to move it since it's open?
It's loaded in memory. I actually didn't move it. I just copied it. It's not a very big file. So I'll just toss it in here. All right, so when you download it, you'll get a thing that looks like this. It'll end up looking like this. And then what you do is you create, I'm just going to add this as a shortcut on the desktop. But if I go and edit this, so this is launching, so this is in the same directory as this. So here's the actual program called Miner. All right, so this is launching the Miner. And then I'm passing it, so this is a computer program, probably written in C or something like that. And I'm passing it a flag for what the server is, and here's the server I'm using: US East, Equihash, Hub, miningpool.com, or miningpoolhub.com. And you get that from the website over here. Go to getting started. So there's my hub, and I think they actually give you the they don't actually give it to you on here. They usually do. Yeah, miner settings. So when you first go to this thing, you're under the, you'll find the miner settings thing here. Bitcoin Gold pool. You know, here's the info you can read about Bitcoin Gold. It's the server settings you're going to use. So if you're in the US, there's your mining pool. For miner settings, they have a link here. So just click on EWBF miner. So this takes you in here. I'm going to show you the stuff. Oh, this just gives you like the talk about it. So these are the different, oh yeah, right underneath it. So this is showing you the setup for that miner. So that's going to be something pretty similar to what I have in mine. So if I go back to mine here, I have the word miner followed by server, followed by the name of the server I'm mining on. So that's my pool. So I'm choosing a big group of people that I want to mine with. And this particular pool I have found has pretty good payouts. I was mining with the exact same equipment on a different pool and probably getting a third of the payouts from this. Because so sometimes, especially with Bitcoin Gold, since it's pretty young, it's a little bit tough to find a good pool. This one has been good. So then my username is, here's my, this is my login username for the site. And then follow that, you put a dot and then whatever you want to name your machine. So I've named the machines based on what the machines are here. So when I remote in, if I get an email saying a certain machine's gone idle, I know which machine to remote into to restart. Okay. All right. And then you put -- pass. You just put an X for your password. You don't need to put a password. And then the port is always going to be that port. And they show you that on the thing here. So that's the exact same thing. It's right here, with the only difference being you put your username here, and then you name your guy whatever you want. You can even name him worker name if you want. Okay. Yeah, you can call him whatever you want there. All right. So once you, I
wanted to know how to get to your account.
That's the awesome fat part.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever your username was, you'll put there.
Because the username's connected to the Equihash hub.
Yeah. So if I go to, is it on my dashboard? Where does it show my actual?
I think you showed at the bottom one time.
Yeah, here. Edit account. Here's my username.
Username is case sensitive or not?
I believe so. Assume it is.
Yeah, just type it in if I see it.
All right, so that'll get you mining. So you just put this in a file. This file is called start.bat.
So originally, there's nothing going to be typed in that when you.
This file won't even exist. So I open up Notepad.
And then you save it.
I open up Notepad here, and I type that whole command in. But then when you save it, go save as. Hide this here. But change the type to all files. And then save it as whatever.bat. So a batch file will show up as an executable to Windows, so that when you double click on it, it will launch it on its own. That make sense? So all the file has in it is that one line of text.
You double my investment yet?
Tripled.
Tripled. Okay, good. Then
Diet Coke for everyone. So, so that file, all that has in it is a line of text. But by putting a .bat at the end of it, the MIME type for that guy, then when you double click on it, Windows will run it as an executable. So all that guy is doing is it's calling this program, passing it the command line arguments that you put inside of that start thing. I just named mine start. You can name yours elephant.
Would you
Yeah.
be able to do it via command line?
It is command line.
I mean, like, through the terminal.
Yeah, you absolutely could. But
It's just easy access.
yeah, you can just double click on this, especially if you just finished playing your game and you're walking away. You just want to double click on the thing, just throw it on the desktop. So here, if you want to, I threw it on the desktop already. So let's say I was just playing my game. So I have my miner shut. Game is done. About to turn my monitor off. There.
Okay.
I'm mining.
So what's going on the screen mining right now?
It's detecting my two cards. So here's the GTX 1080, GTX 1070. So it's seeing I have two GPUs in this machine. It's requesting some work from the pool for it to make some guesses. And it's doing it all itself.
You click the start, not the miner program?
Yeah, because the start calls the miner program with the
Okay, I
correct
got
line, the correct stuff to say, hey, this is who I am. Here's my worker name. Here's the pool I want you to connect to. Here's the port it's on. So that thing's really important.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, it's not mining on your behalf.
So if you just double click that miner, what's it gonna?
They might have it set up to automatically mine for them.
Because then
Yeah.
people won't know how to do it. Okay, that makes more sense.
How did you get to that place with the long code and stuff?
On the website,
Yeah.
I went back to Mining Pool Hub, and then I just clicked on Bitcoin Gold, and that was the first page that comes up over here on the right.
So I have a question.
And you're looking at this guy right here. The EWBF is the one I'd recommend you download. Yeah.
For that, Bitcoin Gold or Zcash or something else.
Well, so if you use the calculator, they'll say right now Zcash is more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mining Bitcoin Gold. Bitcoin Gold was significantly more profitable for a while. Everything's down right now, so everything's and it's not significantly different right now. I like the idea of being a bigger fish in a smaller pool. So
Even with that computer.
Especially with that computer.
Okay.
Because especially with that computer, you're going to earn more Bitcoin Gold coins. If you just measure it in terms of number of coins, you will earn more coins in Bitcoin Gold than you will in Zcash. That make sense?
Yeah.
Then it's just a matter of what are your coins worth.
Mm-hmm.
And since right now crypto, within a couple of percent, they kind of, when everything's up, everything's up. When everything's down, just as a matter of how much each one goes down. And in the last week, Bitcoin Gold has led the market in terms of being up the most in a day, and it's you know, and it's also, you know, been, you know, one of the lowest risers in the market. So it's, you know, I'm a fan of Bitcoin Gold right now, just from it's almost an early adopter perspective. And it does already have legitimate value, and it's already in the top 20 for most market caps. So it's not like a joke. Zcash would be more established in the big scheme of things, but I prefer Bitcoin Gold. In actuality, here, I'll do this. If you want kind of an easy way to start, let me remote into one of my other machines. All right, so I'm going to close this machine. Let me go into, we'll go into this guy. This is in that room there. I'll show you the machines. They're nothing special. They're our VR computers. All right, so I'll go in here real quick. Let me change the screen resolution to something I can use. Well, actually, you said you wanted to see the machines anyways, right?
Yeah.
So let's just do this. I'll switch this back to like that. So let me close this. Before we go over there, anybody have any other questions, things you want me to cover, talk about? Or is this a pretty good starting point?
Yeah, so that website that was on the minor settings, where it says download.
Well, what I'm going to do for you is that when we go over there, I'm going to zip up my EWBF folder. I'll put it on Slack. So what you can do is you can download, if you're mining on Windows, you can download my folder in its exact current state. And then if you'd like, you can just double click on start and mine for me. Or you can edit that start bat file and just change the username to your username and the worker name to your worker name. And then double click on it and you're good to go.
And you said that the one that you're mining on right now is like what, 3 times more profitable? Or one that was, you said whatever they gave you was like 1/3 is profitable?
Yeah, this has been the best Bitcoin Gold mine pool I've found.
Okay.
By a lot.
How do you find different mine pools?
Bitcoin Gold is a little bit tough because it's pretty new. But, you know, like for some of the more established coins like Ethereum or something like that, there's, you know, you just do a search for Ethereum pools and you know, maybe read on Reddit who thinks their pool is better than another pool. You know, but at the end of the day, you just want to find an established pool that has good payouts. And what I mean by good payouts is that you feel like they're reputable and they're not just stealing your, and usually is also low fees. So, you know, but not zero fees, I would say. You probably want a pool that wants some fees because that probably means that they're going to keep working on it and try to have higher performance and uptime and that kind of stuff. But when we talk about the number of coins, let's assume that at the end of the day, and this is why a lot of people mine a altcoin. Let's say you really want Ethereum. Let's say you think Ethereum is the best coin. Okay? It would be in your best interest right now not to mine Ethereum. What you would instead do is you would mine Bitcoin Gold or Zcash and then turn it into Ethereum.
Okay.
You know, send it to Binance, convert your Bitcoin Gold to Ethereum. You know, so Binance is the site I use for doing, I think I had that up here earlier.
That's on a wallet, you said, right?
Well, it's a crypto exchange, but you have a wallet for a whole bunch of different cryptocurrencies. So you would find out what your deposit address is for your Bitcoin Gold on there. And then from your pool, you would send it to that address. So whenever you're ready to do that, I can help you do that for your first time. For right now, just let your coins accumulate on the pool. You'll have a wallet on the pool, and until I pay out every time I earn 1 Bitcoin Gold, I send it to my Binance. So basically, you know, once a week or so, I get a deposit on Binance. So if you guys set it at 1 Bitcoin Gold, it's going to be a while. So maybe you decide you're going to do it at 0.2 or 0.1 or something like that, just so you start sending it somewhere. But I would just for right now, if you're not going to cash out, just let it accumulate on the pool and just be fine with it. Yeah.
What's the commission like on Binance?
Well, Binance doesn't actually take a commission because all Binance does is they marry. Oh, actually, they do take a little fee, but it's small. Yeah. So what they do is they marry people. So when I want to turn Ripple into Ethereum, there's people who want to buy Ripple. There's people who want to sell Ripple. And so it just does there's people with Ethereum who want to sell Ripple, and there's who want to buy Ripple, and there's people with Ripple who want Ethereum. So those are trading pairs. So they're just trying to match those two up from buyers and sellers, just like stocks.
How long does it take usually to have all that?
If you take their recommendation for the current price you're going to sell at, the order could be fulfilled in 5 seconds.
Really?
Yeah. But it's the same thing would be on the stock market.
Yeah.
If you want to sell 100 shares of Apple at the current price, within a couple of pennies, that you usually have the buyers and sellers. One of them is going to be a little bit higher or lower than the other one, depending on the current trend of the stock. So now it's just a matter of when do they finally, when is somebody, if you're selling at this price, when is somebody finally willing, if they're here. Let's say the buyers want to buy it here, you're selling it here. It's a matter of time before this guy will jump up and pay you your price. So it might be 5 seconds, might be 2 minutes. Typically, when you're buying from like an E-Trade or something like that, you're buying through their trade desk. So you're actually buying at current market value, and then they're hopefully going to go be able to actually make the purchase at a lower price so they can take the money in the middle. But that's kind of the punchline there. All right, anything else you want me to have on the recording?
So yeah, I think you just talked about how you transfer it out to a wallet out of Mining Pool Hub.
So on Mining Pool Hub, let's see where that guy is at. This guy. So if I go to my wallet, right now I don't think I have anything in my wallet because I think I just had a payout. Well, here I have a little bit in my wallet at 0.01. So I have it set up. This is my Binance address. So what you would do is when you're going to first do you would go into, I think it's in your, when you go to wallet, you would go to pool account details and you have to say update account, and it would ask you for your 4-digit PIN. So inside here, you'll put in your Binance wallet address or whatever wallet you're using for Bitcoin Gold. I move it to Binance because Binance allows me to, Binance supports Bitcoin Gold. And if I do want to send it out to cash, I use Coinbase with that. So if you want to look at a picture of that process, so Coinbase is, let's call it the US-based bank that allows you to go from US dollars to either Ethereum, Bitcoin, or Litecoin. I think they also support Bitcoin Cash. So those are the big coins. But I mostly operate in Ethereum. Bitcoin's too slow and have too much fees associated with it. So I use Ethereum. So if I want to get into the market of crypto, I want to invest, I would use US dollars to get into Ethereum. So I'd buy Ethereum at Coinbase with US dollars. Then I send, this is my actual bank is here. So I send US dollars to Coinbase and buy Ethereum. Then I send so this is US dollars. Sending US dollars to Coinbase. I buy Ethereum. I then send the Ethereum to Binance. That's Ethereum. So Binance is my exchange. So I can then turn So over here, maybe I have an Ethereum wallet. I have a Ripple wallet. Let's just assume I'll go ahead and give myself a Bitcoin Gold wallet too. There's about 30 wallets you have over here at Binance. So when my Ethereum arrives, it'll show up in this wallet. I can then trade on Binance. So this guy's an exchange. So I can trade between Ethereum and Bitcoin Gold. both ways. So if I want to cash out, what I would do is I would, so here's your mining pool here. So you would send Bitcoin Gold to your Bitcoin Gold wallet at Binance. Let's kind of put this guy up here. Then you would convert using Binance. You would trade Bitcoin Gold for Ethereum. Then you would send, if you want to turn it into US dollars, then you would send your Ethereum to your Coinbase address. So you actually have an Ethereum wallet here and an Ethereum wallet here. So this guy has a unique address, this guy has a unique address. So you'll send Ethereum here. Then you'll cash out your Ethereum into US dollars, paying Coinbase's fee, which is a percentage of the transaction, which is fairly high, actually. But it's the only way to do it. So you pay it. You know, this is what it is. So like if you, like when I bought, if you buy, let's say, $5,000 worth of any crypto, let's say Ethereum, your fee might be like $200, something like that. I mean, you notice it, but the hope is you're going to make enough that it's not going to be that big of a deal. All right, so then
I think at Coinbase it's like 3%.
Whatever it is, yeah. So it's a flat percent, but the number will feel high to you, but that's the cost of getting in from US dollars into crypto. It's just the way it is. Then you'll send, you'll convert your Ethereum back into US dollars at Coinbase, and then you'll come here. Now, if you want to let's say you want to stay in the crypto market, but you kind of want to sit on the sidelines for a little bit, there's a crypto called Tether.
Okay.
And Tether it tracks the US dollar. So Tether is always, it might go up 1 or 2% or something like that, but it's basically 1 point something, 1.003 or 0.9998 US dollars per one Tether.
Okay.
So there's a trading pair on there for Tether to Ethereum. So let's say that you move your Bitcoin Gold to Ethereum and you think the market's about to crash. All right, you might cash out of Ethereum into Tether, which is equivalent to cash in terms of value. So even if the crypto market's crashing, this guy will stay at $1.
How can they regulate that?
Well, you're trusting the crypto market.
Oh, so you're,
But Tether is is their tool for allowing you to sit on the sidelines while still staying at Binance. So they're going to collect their little fee when you move from Ethereum to Tether, and then their fee when you go back in. But this allows you to sit on the sidelines and avoid the fluctuation.
So
when you watch Tether, it moves like 1% or something. It sits right at around 1.
So it wouldn't be any different cashing it. Oh, because it's
this is going on. This is on Binance. You don't have it in your bank account. You can't swipe your credit card and spend this.
I got it.
Yeah, this just allows you to stay in the game, but not actually be playing right now.
Paying less fees to basically cash it out. Because if you wanted to get it out, get your money out, you'd have to convert it to Coinbase and then take it out, but then put it back to Coinbase to put it to Binance. So it'd be a lot more.
This allows you to get to your actual bank account and spend real dollars and go to Taco Bell. Right? Okay. This guy lets you sit on the sidelines if you think that crypto's kind of at a high right now, and maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to bail for a few minutes, a few weeks, whatever it is, and then as soon as I see an opportunity, I'll go from Tether back in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Tether is like most valuable.
Well, you're not going to make any money off Tether.
Yeah.
If you just move into Tether, it's going to be a 1-for-1, and you're going to just lose fees. Yeah, that's what it is. So the thing is, these things aren't any different. It's all the same crap. So Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, how did blockchain start, I guess? Like, where-
Well, it kind of started with the Bitcoin white paper. So there was this kind of an anonymous group that came out with the Bitcoin white paper that initially described and it's possible somebody had the idea before that, but that was kind of the first application of it, let's say, or the first meaningful application of it. So that came out, and then people started mining Bitcoin, and then started seeing. So the white paper kind of explained the advantage of blockchain for an alternative ways of validating transactions between two parties.
Okay.
So it's a data structure. When you take the 300 class, we talk about data structures in there, and that's all it is. It's just a kind of data structure. It's saying, hey, if you want to maintain stuff in a public forum, and here's the way you link these things together, and here's the way what the rules are for being able to join the chain, and if you pass the background check, we'll let you on the chain, and now you're there, you're in. I'm sure you'll have more questions, but this gives you a pretty good crash course.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so then we'll walk over there. I'll show you one of the machines, and then I'll zip up my folder, and I'll throw it on Slack. I don't know what the size of the file is. I assume one of you guys are friends with him, so you
He
can.
has a 30 gigabit. Or
Oh, so I can just give it to you. Yeah, if you have a jump drive on you, actually, all you guys have jump drives on you?
No, it's back to
All right. Well, I'll throw it on Slack anyways.
Okay.
But then if you have a jump drive, you want me to just give it to you directly right now too, that's fine. And then all you have to do is take it to your computer, put it somewhere in your computer where you can find it, edit my start thing, just use,
Unless we want to mine.
yeah, unless you want to mine for me, which I'm
So would it
completely
show
cool
up on
with.
your machine, on your...
I would see a new miner. I would see a new miner show up, yeah.
You'd be like...
I'll give you extra credit. Wait, hold on. What, you have a 1070? I'll give you extra credit. So what's this worth to you? So yeah, edit that start bat file. Just use Notepad, and the only two things you have to change is change AwesomeFat to your username, and then change the worker name to. You don't even have to change the worker name if you don't want, but change it to whatever you want to name your machine. Because there's no reason why you can't have your username with Omen or something like that, right? It can be.
Password too, right?
There is no password. Yeah, you have one in your account, but when you're mining, the password just says X. Yeah, you don't. The only thing you have to change in that file is your username. Actually, the only thing you have to change is the username.
Do you have to delete where it says username or just like?
You'll see my file. Do I still have it open here? I still have the Omen open.
You could. It's not unethical because you should tell them what it's going to do. Say it's going to mine Bitcoin, and then they run it, but it's actually running on your account. So it's not unethical.
You tell them it's going to mine, or not Bitcoin, but Bitcoin will just not.
Yeah, isn't it cool? 1 month. Yeah, it's all cool.
Yeah, it only took 1 month for me to have half of my money.
Me too.
Yeah. So this is what the file will look like. Notice that I already have everything filled in. So you'll have this identical file. You'll have exactly this file. I'm going to zip up the whole thing. You don't have to download any executable or anything. Just download this folder. The only thing you have to change is change AwesomeFat to whatever your username is. Notice password just says X.
Unless you want extra credit.
Yeah. If you want to rename your worker to something else, you can. It doesn't matter. But just change this username to yours. Otherwise, it won't get associated with your account. All right. So if you want, I'm just going to walk over to the next room, and I'll show you one of the machines, and I'll zip up one of the miners.